Hello, friends. When we look at our world today from a strictly cultural, historical viewpoint, it appears extremely chaotic and confusing right now. It appears that man has lost his way. But when looked at from a scientific point of view, what we actually are seeing in our world today is um, a very highly evolved form of intelligent life. And this is mostly embodied in the human species. So this is a confusing matter, but in order to understand it better, let's rewind. Um, let's push the rewind button and go back and try and, from a scientific viewpoint, try and understand where we came from and what this is all about. When we begin to go back, the first thing we notice is that um, human life itself has evolved. Human life, even since the time that we've begun keeping records, human life is not anything like it once was. It has become much more sophisticated, much more complex. It's not always morally improved, but it's showing scientific signs of evolution in many different ways. And simply the complexity is one of these, that human life is now. Uh, I mean, we talk about multitasking, but human life is basically multitasking on steroids that we have now. And and when you look at our world today, you see um, an explosion of intelligent life. Um, we're at the point, and this scares a lot of people, but we're at the point when we are actually outgrowing the human body. Our intelligence is um, evolving beyond the parameter of of being housed in a human body. And when you think about it, this is actually a very high form of evolution because the human body, with all of its beauty and functionality, has been problematic for us, and people know that. People still experience that with disease and with old age and with death, and it's just it's something that intelligent life is going to one day leave behind. So when we look back and when we rewind, we see that this age of man, which is only 6,000 years old, and our historical records only go back about 4,000 years, has shown tremendous evolutionary progress. And this is a time period that is actually, in scientific terms, the blink of an eye. It's a very, very short time period. And of course, any uh, looking back that we do previous to this age is speculative, but from a scientific viewpoint, there are ways that we can understand some of this progression of intelligent life that we are a part of. And we see that our present um, way of life, our present way of perceiving things is um, it's very uh, new. It's not. It doesn't go back very far, and this is something that we can look back on, and we can say there's been a kind of explosion of intelligent life. Prior to this age, we go back and we rewind, and we see that human life was extant, but it was not as sophisticated or complex as it is now. It was much simpler, and it was much more animalistic, and and so we see that the Earth at that time was populated by many life forms with intelligence, but that intelligence was not very highly developed, including the intelligence of mankind. And turning back and going back even further, we see that there had to be a beginning to all of this. There had to be um, a, a starting point where life itself was formless. It was life, but it was formless, and it was not yet manifested into the forms, the life forms that we now see among us, and life forms that have existed and become extinct, such as dinosaurs. At some point, this Earth, this planetary environment that we call Earth, was void of life. It was void of life forms. And so we're going way back when we understand this. We're going back prior to not just mankind, but prior to other species of animals, and prior to even vegetation upon the earth. For instance, when we look at other planets in our solar system, and we've definitely been very curious about this, we see that, like on the moon, or nearby planets such as Mars or Venus, we see that these planets are formless. They they have rocks, and they have dirt, and they have mountains, but they, as far as we know so far, they do not have intelligent life. This has been our whole quest with uh, outer space exploration. We're looking for another planet that has life in the same way, that can support life in the same way that this planet that we call Earth supports life. And we haven't found that anywhere. We see a universe that is incredibly vast. We can't even comprehend its vastness. And so far, all that we know is is that these other heavenly bodies are are without intelligent life. Only the Earth has intelligent life, although there is speculation that, and this was brought out very creatively in the Star Wars um, stories and movies. There are other solar systems in our universe that could very well have a planet like Earth. And um, if there was another planet like Earth that could support intelligent life, there's no reason not to believe that intelligent life is there somewhere. Because if it happened on Earth, it can happen there. So the question is, for our scientific community, the real quest is finding out what happened on Earth in the beginning. And what happened before, when Earth was still void and formless, before there was intelligent life? And where did this intelligent life that we are now on the far other end of unfoldment, where did it come from originally? And science is very certain about certain laws that govern life on the planet Earth. And one of those laws is evolution. It seems especially clear that intelligent life has been evolutionary in its makeup. And in other words, that it could have started as something very small and insignificant. It could have been much like a seed of a plant, of a tree, for instance. When we look at an apple seed and we see how tiny it is, we hold it in our hand and we see that the mystery of this seed is that it's full of intelligent life, and science has discovered that a seed, like an apple seed, is actually um, a predetermined life form. In other words, this was the discovery of what we call genetics or DNA, is that a seed contains the full genetic code of the apple tree. And the apple tree is what manifests from the evolutionary outworking of that seed, of that life form, of that intelligent life form. So it's very likely, based on this, and we see this pattern in all earthly life, that all earthly life is on some level evolutionary. It's very likely that this is how all earthly life forms came into being. The life itself started as almost an insignificant pebble of life, a spark, if you will, of life. And yet, this spark of life contained the DNA of not just one species like the apple tree, but of all life forms. So we have to really wrap our minds around this and expand our minds, which is something that science is very good at doing. Expand your mind to this complete extreme of possibility, of potentiality, and you see that an evolution, an evolutionary thrust of intelligent life could be contained in a single seed. It's hard to imagine, but a single seed of life, a spark of life, could have encoded inside of it this entire outworking that we see on the earth now. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of animal species, of insect species, of plant life forms, and of course of human life. And there's no reason, this is what science is proving. There's no reason that this could not have begun with a single seed of life, a spark of life. And the one question, or the one, you could call it a flaw, that science has not yet been able to prove is science knows that life, intelligent life, began with uh, a spark, a single spark, but it doesn't know, and it cannot at this point give a good explanation for where that spark came from. And that's what a lot of uh, debate around the religious scientific field comes from, is that even if life is scientifically evolutionary, and even if it began with a single spark, that doesn't mean that there isn't a creator, because the theory for a creator is simply that that creation, that spark that contained the DNA for all of this, had to start somewhere. It had to be created. It had to come from somewhere. And the same would hold true if there was life on other earthly like planets in other solar systems. If life began on Earth in a single spark, it's very possible that it could have began or could have begun in the same way on other planets that were like the Earth and could support life, intelligent life. But in every case, there had to be a start, there had to be a creation. That single seed, that spark of life, had to come from someplace. Now, science uh, basically answers this question without answering it. It just says that it just came into being somehow. But this is for every human being to decide for themselves what they believe. If life began as a single spark that contained the genetic code for all life forms, which is scientifically possible and even provable. If that's the case, then we have to understand this incredible evolutionary drama that we are a part of since the beginning. Who knows how long ago, in terms of time, this was? There is really no such thing as time, but we like to measure it, and we like the measurement that we are attached to sort of make it make sense in our minds. We call time. So if you think of time, how many eons ago, how many billions of years ago did this was the Earth um, intelligent life when it began on the Earth, when it was this spark, a tiny little spark that began to unfold. And so then we begin to see a forward movement of intelligent life on the Earth. And it happened very slowly if you think in terms of our linear time frame. It began with uh, one thing leading to another, intelligent life evolving into its most expansive form. Um, so the direction has been clear. Life and intelligent life are are the same thing when evolution is at work. So we see that in the beginning there were no animals, there were no humans, there was vegetation, and vegetation is an intelligent life form. We can see that now. Um, it's actually very evident that trees and plants and all kinds of what we would call vegetation, life forms, are intelligent. They're just not of the same brand of intelligence that we are. And then we see insects and animals coming on the scene, many different species. But all of this is coming out of the same DNA, the same spark of life that began intelligent life. And the multitude of species, the multitude of diversity in both the plant and animal world. Um, Plants are really amazing to look at how many different varieties there are. It's mind-boggling. But this all came out of a single spark of life, of intelligent life. And then it came out of the evolutionary thrust of intelligent life moving forward toward its full expansion of expression. And eventually, there was an animal that we called primates, and this was the most intelligent animal yet to come into being. And what science has deduced is that mankind is an evolutionary form of primate. And it makes sense on the one hand. It makes sense in terms of intelligent life because primates were the most intelligent animal, and mankind, uh, which resembles primates in many ways, was an even higher level of intelligence. And in the beginning, this may not have even been very apparent. It might have been that mankind was just like a subspecies of primate that was hadn't yet shown its super intelligence. But remember our DNA example, and remember that all of this was encoded in the beginning for mankind to come on the scene because of man's ability to express intelligence. In other words, we had to leave primates behind because primates were not capable of the same level of expression of intelligent life that human beings are. So human beings came on the scene, and all of a sudden, intelligent life began to really expand and began to really take over the earth with the uh, evolution of human life. And so, what we've really witnessed is this explosion of intelligent life through the human species, because the other species have not evolved in intelligence like mankind has. And that's why mankind has been an exception. Mankind has been a unique creature because there were no limits with mankind. The other species stopped in their evolutionary expansion, and mankind took up the mantle and kept going. And so intelligent life has, for as long as we can reckon, intelligent life has been expanding only in mankind and very explosively in mankind. But this is part of the DNA evolutionary thrust of intelligent life. And so this is what we're a part of. Now, there is something else that happened, and this is fairly recent. And it's also it's a controversial aspect of human life. There, as evolution is wont to do, there has been a branching off of human intelligence. Um, we, in other words, like if you look at a tree and you look at a tree's trunk and you see that above that trunk there are many branches that begin to push their way upward out of the trunk and to spread out. And this is how the explosion of intelligent life has been um, with human beings. Um, our intelligence actually began to branch out at some point. And at first, it was strictly biological. It was strictly um, like the primates' intelligence. It was something that was a part of our mind and body, and and man was superior in this biological outworking, but it was still just biological, which was limiting. But then at some point, there was this branching off. And the branching off had to do with a part of mankind's makeup, of the species of man, of our makeup, that most people, even now, are not aware of. And that part of us has been called consciousness. It has been called this for lack of anything better to call it, because we still don't understand it. And we don't understand where it came from, because it came out of the trunk of biological human intelligence. We associate it with our mind. We associate it with uh, the biological parts of our being that are pushing forward, pushing upward for expression. And we have tried to understand this faculty that we call consciousness through this limited framework of, of associating it with mind. But the fact is that, and this goes back to our DNA expression of evolutionary life, the an intelligent life form it coming into full expression. The fact is that this endowment of consciousness that we now are beginning, we're just beginning to understand and to see its power, is not uh, part of our mind. It's not biological. It came from somewhere else. It came from within us, but it is another part of our evolutionary outworking. And this is why we have become a spiritual creature. And a lot of people would say, well, maybe you've become a spiritual creature, but I haven't. No, we all have become spiritual. Spirit is another name for consciousness. So, what we see in this outworking of consciousness and spirit is a completely new branch of human evolution. And it is coming forth with great power right now. But it has been around a little while. We just haven't been very aware of it. And it is a part of human evolutionary uh, outworking, and the intelligence, the intelligent outworking of human life, or the human version of intelligent life. And it is a higher form than we have been in up till now. How can we know that? Well, because all we have to do is examine where we've been, look back on history, look back on the history of this age, and we see human life being extremely intelligent, but having a lot of problems, having a lot of difficulties, having a lot of negative outworkings, having wars, having violence, having bestial conditions on the earth, um, this has not been our highest outworking. This has been a high outworking on its own in terms of evolution, but it's not our highest. And so what we see now is that consciousness, spirit, is coming more to the forefront and saying to us, this is the way. This is how we are now going to expand as an intelligent life form. Um, I think we had pretty much come to the end of the road with our biological intelligence, and um, when we began to express higher forms of intelligence, we didn't know what to call it. We didn't know to call it spirit or consciousness. So, this is one of the really amazing things about the times that we're living in right now, and really about this entire age, because this entire age, the past 6,000 years, has been specifically about the rise of this branch in human life, in human intelligence. Um, in the beginning of the age, we didn't know what to call it, and we didn't know anything about it. We were still pretty much moving in our biological intelligence, and little by little, we began to see the light of this other branch, of this other faculty within us. And we began to understand that it was a higher form of evolution, a higher form of intelligent life than we had been expressing up until then. And we went forth throughout this age, uh, chasing after this thing that we had very little understanding about. And yet it was happening. It was happening to us. It was like when a plant flowers and you know displays this beautiful thrust of life, that it doesn't know what it's doing. It's simply the evolution of intelligent life coming forth in beauty. And the same thing has been happening to us throughout this age, is that we haven't known what this is about, but it has been happening nonetheless. And it's interesting because religion has been one of the main expressions of this, but completely encased in ignorance. Uh, Religion basically took the impulse associated with this evolutionary thrust and tried to box it into the framework that we had before. And so it was actually an expression of this, but it was a twisted expression of it. And now, and it's really been only in the last 2,000 years that we've been making real progress with this. Now we're beginning to understand that this higher level of consciousness is an evolutionary outworking of what human beings can be. And why 2,000 years? Because something happened 2,000 years ago that was quite incredible. And it was simply that a man, a human being named Jesus, appeared on the scene of public human life, displaying an evolutionary thrust of intelligent human life that no one else had ever displayed before. And we couldn't make any sense of him or it. And that's why we ended up putting him to death. Was It was so foreign to us. But what we have seen since then is that the rest of us, the rest of human beings, um, with Jesus as our example, as our way shower, have begun to express exactly what he expressed more and more, although not to the same degree. And so this has been going on for 2,000 years. Consciousness, therefore, or spiritual life, spirituality, has been exploding, but we still don't have a very good understanding about it. We still don't even know what to call it, but we feel it very strongly now. And we feel that the intelligence of our species, the intelligence life that is thrusting forward in our species, uh, it's like way beyond us. It's that's why we see these possibilities of where we're going, and we get afraid. But Jesus showed us that there's nothing to fear, that intelligent human life in its highest forms is nothing to fear. It's going to be more wonderful than anything we've yet experienced. Um, we see this in the other evolutionary forms. We see that when a plant bursts into color and flowers, uh, that's a much greater expression of intelligent life than it was before. And it's the same for every creature, but especially for mankind. And this is because we are carrying the torch of evolution, of intelligence, the evolution of intelligent life. We are carrying the torch forward because no other species can do that. And that's why in our religious writings there are many references to a new world, a new age, a new order, all of these things that the prophets and seers of old envisioned, that are so much better than what we have now, so much higher in intelligent outworking of life, so much more compassionate, so much more just in every way, a great, great improvement. And this is where human life is going, whether we understand it or not. It's happening, and it is going to happen. And Jesus showed us that. He was like living proof that, look, here is one of us in this new form, in this new evolutionary outworking. And it has to do with what we now call consciousness. And consciousness is a word that once it breaks free from its biological associations, that we have up until now been associating it with mind, once consciousness breaks free of that, we will see that it's a perfect word to describe this new evolutionary form of mankind. It's a perfect word because it's basically without limitation. And the way that we know this is that the teaching of Jesus about God is basically that God is consciousness. So, in other words, what we're evolving into is it's God. It's consciousness in its full expression and full evolutionary outworking. And of course, we're miles and miles away from that. But that doesn't change the reality of of our direction, of our progression. And when we know this, we know that there's nothing to fear because God is good and God is the higher light, the higher outworking of life, of intelligent life. And if we're moving in that direction, we're we're going to do very well for ourselves eventually. We're struggling right now, of course, um, but this is what we have to look forward to, and it's an extremely great outworking. We are intelligent beings, and we are expressive of the evolution of um, intelligent life, and that's what we call consciousness now, and basically without limit um, to what we can become at some point, and it's all good.